To be here and give an introductory lecture to one of the most fascinating and, although at the same time, pretty much neglected historical source that I know of. The Mu Zhuan, or Legends of King Mu, the Son of Heaven, is considered to be the earliest and longest extant travelogue in Chinese history. It describes the journeys of King Mu of the Zhou dynasty to the farthest corners of his realm and beyond in the 10th century BC. Harnessing his famous 8 noble steeds, he visited distant clans and nations such as the Zhuan, Zhu, and Zhu, exchanging gifts with all of them. He scales the awe-inspiring Kunlun Mountains and meets with legendary Xiwangnu. He watches exotic animals and he orders his men to mine huge quantities of precious jade for transport back to his capital. The travelogue ends with a detailed account of the morning ceremonies during the burial of a favorite lady of the king. I have to say that this speech is, of course, much longer, as you might imagine, but I have to abridge it because our time budget is very tight. But in the conference proceedings, you may read the complete text. Irrespective of the literary matters, the Mu Zhuan may be regarded as a treasure house of primary source information on Chinese Bronze Age diplomacy, describing contacts with various clans, ethnic groups, and foreign peoples. It introduces us to mythology and religion. It shows us aspects of political control in ancient China. We read about archaic economical transactions, tribute and gifts. We read about historical geography and toponymy. And, of course, the history of Chinese characters is also an important part of this. As a matter of fact, I selected 3 areas in which I would like to show that it is really a very, very important source which should be used and make good use of. So these are the 3 areas I was referring to, but due to the tight time schedule, I'm afraid probably I will be able only to talk about the first point. Let's give an example for the identification or interpretation of ancient Chinese characters. We all know that even the best dictionaries and encyclopedias are not completely without flaws, but some of the mistakes, inconsistencies, and omissions can be dealt with. For example, let's look at chapter 4 of the Mu Zhuan, where we are confronted with an unintelligible string of 4 characters. Although the editorial staff of the modern standard dictionary Hanyu Dazilian, directed by the famous Xu Zhongshu, could draw on a whole series of excellent dictionaries of the past and the present, this dictionary nevertheless comments in all 4 cases 音译未详. But must we really be content with this? Let's look at the context of this string of characters. This section of chapter 4, to make it clear again, I'm talking only about this particular section, but what I'm telling you is holding true for the rest of the book as well. This section of chapter 4 describes presents and items of tribute exchanged between King Mu and the clans and ethnic groups he visits. I just selected a few examples just to give you an impression. Here, as in other sections of the Mu Zhuan, we notice specific linguistic structure. On the first position of the phrase, usually 2 syllables, an item, the gift or article of tribute as such is mentioned. On the following second position, we see an indication of quantity, consisting of number plus number, or number plus measure verb. So we have some sort of formula, some sort of, let's say just simply a rule. We have an item, 2 syllables, usually, and we have a quantity, 2 digits usually. This allows us to assume with a high degree of certainty that the characters A and B I just showed you, these very exotic ones, yes, denote the concrete present, while characters C and D represent the quantity of the present or tribute. Judging from the other examples mentioned in my list, C and D describe a composite number, or a combination of number plus measure word. In other words, at least character C must represent a number, while character D denotes either a number or a measure word or a quasi-measure word such as a vessel. Ogawa Taguchi is well known for his interpretation of the 4 unknown characters as Hua Guan Bi Yong, which has to be rejected, just as his second interpretation, Hua Guan Dang Yao, because in both cases it does not take into consideration the obvious linguistic structure of this 4-syllable string. My tentative interpretation of the 4-character string, therefore, is that it refers to wine jars, in modern language lei, as they were discovered in a tomb dated to the time of Zhou King Mu in Chang'an Pudun in the year 1954. Yes. The second part of my speech would have been in Chinese geography in archaic times and antiquity, and especially with reference to Kunlun and Xiwang, but because of the time limitations, I will skip that part. So I jump to the third part, astronomy and mythology. The Mu Zhuan may also be useful in the field of early Chinese mythology as a so far untapped source. This particularly applies to China's ancient or archaic astral mythology, because a surprisingly high number of proper names in the ancient travelogue are in fact also attested as astronomical names or terms. Counting the names and other terms for persons, clans, tribes, ethnic groups, and including place names, we come up with round about 50 names in the Mu Zhuan for which we can identify without much effort direct or at least possible references to astral mythology. Apart from the already mentioned Xiwangwu, which I just skipped, I would like to draw your attention to Zhaofu, the charioteer of the king, to Shenbo, the driver of the accompanying chariot, and to Sanyaoshi, descendants of a notorious tribe from antiquity. Zhaofu is known as the name of an asterism as well of the clearly visible pulsation star Cepheus Delta, which interestingly enough is also known under its alternative name Sima. According to Schlegel, Zhaofu as an asterism designates the 5 étoiles noires et au-dessus du char céleste dans la voie lactée. Il répond à Delta Epsilon Zeta Lambda et à une autre étoile du ciel. No. No, that's it. All right. The Encyclopedia Hanyu presents Shen as the first reading of the character which we usually read San as in Sanjia, meaning the constellation of Orion with the stars Betelgeuse, Rigel, and Bellatrix. In the framework of ancient Chinese astronomy, Orion is a key part of the White Tiger, Python, in the Western Heavenly Palace, Qigong. In Gao Lu's illustration of the White Tiger in the West, that is autumn, the asterism Shen marks the neck of the tiger. So should Shenbai, or rather Shenguo, be interpreted as a metaphor for the constellation of Orion in autumn? Third example. Only one single look into Sima Qian's records of the grand historian Shen Qi is sufficient to show that the Sanmiao too were indeed related to astronomical concepts of China's antiquity. In his section on questions of the calendar, Li Shu, we come across the following remarks. The Sanmiao submitted to the powerful authority of Zhou Li, which is why the two officials, were removed from their positions, and discrepancies concerning leap days and irregularities in Jupiter stations occurred. The month marking the beginning of the lunar calendar year was deleted. The asterisk of Sheti lost its function as a marker of the seasons of the year. All calendar days fell into a state of disorder. In this passage, the officials, Guan, designate planets or stars which exercise or lose a marking function, that is, hold office or lose office. All other terms in this particular passage are openly calendrical and astronomical terms. As this paragraph unmistakably describes events and scenes in the starry sky, it seems more than reasonable to suppose that Sanmiao or Sanmiao Shen is most like in astronomical terms. Taking these maybe surprising celestial features into consideration, one may ask what kind of text the Mu Zhuan actually is. The combination of historical and literary traits with astral and astronomical elements leads us to at least three different explanatory models. The Mu Zhuan is 1. A description of astronomical events, mythopoetically clad in a travelogue. 2. It is a factual description of a historical journey, embellished with cosmological allusions to heighten the importance of the journey or the journeyer. Or 3. It is an intellectual game between the author and the reader, making use of old mythological imageries, possibly insinuating the motives of immortality or rebirth. As said at the beginning, the Mu Zhuan is the oldest extant, relatively long travelogue in Chinese literature, even though its authenticity is debated. Due to its deduced date of composition, that is, the Zhang War era, the Mu Zhuan as a literary document, after critical reading, is, in spite of not a few open questions, a very valuable supplement to the sparse early epigraphical primary sources, offering precious insights into the spiritual and material culture of pre-classical China. This ancient travelogue deserves a much greater attention than it enjoyed in recent years, indeed decades. Thank you very much for your attention. 谢谢大家。